Steve is a 28-year Canadian Armed Forces veteran who has traveled from Milan to Dubai teaching ADR. So we're taking a look. Thank you very much, Steve. Come on up.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much for being here. I'm just going to jump into this real quick. And you're saying equine therapy. What's that got to do with mediation? Well, basically, let's look at it this way. Why can Praxis? I'm sitting at home. The phone rings. It's a home office. I pick it up. And the gentleman on the other end says, my teenage daughter just walked in on me attempting suicide. What can I do? PTSD is a horrible, vicious injury. And the reality is, if you're not talking, you're going to die. So what do? We get people to start talking. And how does this work? Well, I got a background. Yes, I was in the military. I've been involved in conflict. Those of you around here that have known me for a while know that I'm either resolving conflict or if I don't like something, I cause conflict. I also work with Jim Marlin, a psychologist who's got over 20 years in prison. His clientele were those nice folks that are in solitary confinement 23 out of 24 hours a day. So between us, we come from a subculture of violence and death. Get rid of the pretty titles. There's one reason for the military and one reason only. It's violence and death. That's why they exist. Out of that, we've had this little dust-up in the Arab countries, shall we say. And what that's done is that's created people coming home with very serious injuries. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or the one thing the Department of National Defense has done very well, they've labeled it operational stress injury. In other words, any mental injury resulting from your time in service is known as an operational stress injury. And it's a reality. Every mediator here knows. No conversation, no resolution. The challenge with PTSD is it shuts down communication. It causes people to act out, either in a violent manner or in the completely opposite manner, where they just shut down completely. They become socially inactive. They can't have a simple conversation with anyone. And what happens to the family when you have half of that parent structure sleeps all day and is awake all night? They've been pensioned off. Well, sorry, that's a lie. We'll talk later. They receive a lump sum of maybe $300,000, told to go away and pretend that you're nobody's problem. That means there's only one member of the family left able to earn an income. Because people with complex or bipolar depression and post-traumatic stress disorder generally can't hold a job. So that means the spouse is living in one social world, the veteran's living in another, and caught in between are the kids. We've had 120 couples attend our program over the last 3 years, and over 100 of them are still together. That's pretty incredible. Why are they still together? Because they're able to have a conversation about who loads the dishwasher. What we do in our program is we tell them to forget the big picture. It sucks. Focus on one single positive conversation a day. Just one conversation. Screw the rest. If you have one single positive conversation a day, that means you're set up for success. That means if you can do it once, you can do it twice. And if you can do it twice, then you can have 3 conversations without conflict. And what do we call a positive conversation? Get this. One where you both walk away satisfied. We're not going to blow pixie dust up your butt and say everyone walks away happy, because anyone here who's real knows that isn't real. So don't set people up for failure by saying, oh, we'll be happy. No, you're going to have bad, ugly days ahead of you. And part of this is recognizing what can you do when the feces hits the rotating oscillator at force 10. So, I was very fortunate a number of years ago to run into Dr. Dan Dana, a nice guy even if he is an American, down in Kansas City. And he has a very basic, simple program, Managing Differences. We're very lucky we get to use this program, this very simple, basic self-help mediation, the most basic kind there is, on understanding that the conversation is without blame. And the terminology we use is no walkaways. In other words, you stay there till it's resolved. And no power plays. No imposed one-sided solutions. And with this, we're able to produce specific workbooks. Because you know what really sucks about PTSD? Is short-term memory loss. Anyone who's dealing with mental health, depression, complex mental health issues understands short-term memory loss really sucks. Nothing worse than walking into a room saying, I think we had an argument yesterday. I don't know if we did or not. I'll just pretend it never happened and see what happens. This way, when they leave our program, they leave with hands-on materials, resource materials that are simple to read. They have the workbooks where they write notes in their own handwriting when they go, shit, what did I say? I got it. I promised I'd take the garbage out every Thursday. It's a way of introducing self-confidence. So with that, we get a lot of this stuff. We get people talking to each other. And if you get people talking to each other, especially as parents, you have the basic conflicts being resolved. And you know what happens? The kids are sitting there saying, hey, holy cow, they're talking. They're resolving stuff. And what those parents are now doing is they're modeling the behavior they wish to see in others. And if the kids can see their parents deal with this ugly stuff in a positive way, that means when they're parents and they're adults, they won't be afraid of conflict either. So you say, why horses? Well, you can bullshit people, you can't bullshit a horse. And that's the reality. If you're a dickhead, the horse is going to say, you're a dickhead, I don't want to talk to you. That's the reality. Also, one of the major challenges we face with this is PTSD can shut people down socially. And what will happen is the horse will push people around. So think of it this way. You used to be cock of the walk, toughest guy there was. You walk around and you can take any situation on. You've saved your buddies in a firefight. Now, you can't even face answering the phone. You've got no self-confidence. If you can work with a 1,200-pound animal, you know what happens there? You start building self-confidence. You know what happens when you have self-confidence? You start getting some self-esteem. And what happens when you have self-esteem? You have pride. People with pride don't kill themselves. My regiment has lost 3 soldiers in the last 2 months to suicide because of PTSD. It's real and it's killing people. Learn by doing. This is a testimonial by a couple that came to us last year. And if you notice the big thing in this testimonial, they're talking about talking. The power of being able to just have one positive conversation a day has created it. You know what? Their kids want to be around them again. It's changed their lives by teaching these folks basic conflict resolution skills. And what it's achieved is over 100 couples out of the 120 are still together right across this country. With that, we've been written up in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. We've had a study published because that's the other thing is, thankfully, with Dr. Dr. Randy Duncan in Saskatchewan, whose raison d'etre is he's a research psychologist, so he's been creating studies and we've been getting feedback, and our success rate short-term is 97%. We've had that study published in the Canadian Military Journal, and the Government of Canada in July just gave $250,000, $250,000 to sit there and say, what the heck are these guys doing and why is it working? When I go to that, that leads me to the next thing. One of the things we want to put in place in the future is follow-up mediation. We want to have mediators who will come back to these families in 2 or 3 and 4 months after they've been with us and help sit down with them and help mediate who is in fact going to load the dishwasher. To give you an understanding how serious this is, it was just a few months ago. I was in Ontario, and we had an individual, the veterans, sitting there, and he said, "Oh, Steve, I didn't tell you. You might be mad at me, but when I called you, I was on the highway. I was on 401 looking for a dump truck to drive into." With that communication, having a conversation with him, turned it around, and he showed up with his 18-year-old daughter, and they are doing so much better. They're alive together because of no conversation, no resolution. They learned the lesson hard. They talk. They survived. Thank you.
Stay up here, Steve. So I guess the first question I have for you is, how does this involve ADRIC members?
What we're looking at is, when I mentioned that there's down the road, we want to see follow-up mediation. Very basic, simple, interest-based mediation. We're looking for mediators across the country to be able to come in, visit with these families, and help them mediate who's taking out the garbage. What we're looking at is this is going to be a long-term project. It's going to start out as volunteer work, and if we can get this piloted correctly, it'll be part of the Department of National Defence and Veterans Affairs Canada will eventually be paying for it. So there's a possibility this organization can be part of a world leader, because already our program has drawn interest from the UK, the US, Israel, Uganda, just to name a few. This organization has the opportunity to take this to the next level, and that's you guys.
Thank you very much, Steve. That's fantastic.